The most wanted man on the planet lived in a 3-story house, in a middle-class neighborhood called Bilal Town, in a garrison city in northern Pakistan. The Pakistan Military Academy, the Pakistani equivalent of Sandhurst or West Point, was 1.3 kilometers away. Active and retired military officers lived in the neighborhood. He had lived there for 5 or 6 years. The compound had walls 3.5 to 5.5 meters high with barbed wire on top. No telephone line, no internet connection. Trash was burned inside the property, never collected by the municipal service. 2 security gates controlled entry. A 3rd floor had been added to the main building with a terrace enclosed by a 2-meter wall, high enough for someone to get fresh air without being seen from outside or above. The CIA had been watching the compound for months from a rented house nearby. They could see that a family lived on the upper floors, a man, a woman, children. The man never left the compound, never. Shopping, trips to the market, any contact with the outside world, all of it was done by 2 other men who lived on the ground floor. The CIA called the figure on the upper floors the Pacer, because satellite imagery showed him walking in circles in the garden, always under a grapevine that blocked the view from above. They never managed to photograph his face before the operation. They never captured his voice. All they had was circumstantial, the security profile of the compound, the courier's connection to bin Laden, the behavior of the unknown resident, and the fact that every detail of that property was consistent with the protection of an extremely high-value target. Getting to that address took 10 years. The entire intelligence chain that led to Abbottabad depended on a single man, Ibrahim Saeed Ahmed, known by the alias Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. After September 11, 2001, the hunt for bin Laden became the most expensive and extensive intelligence operation in American history. The first years were frustrating. Bin Laden escaped from Tora Bora in December 2001, slipping through a cordon of Afghan militia and American special forces during a bombing campaign that should have killed him. After that, he vanished. No phone calls, no emails, no cell phone, no satellite phone, no electronic footprint. The NSI's signals intelligence, the ability to intercept communications, was useless against a man who used no electronic device. That meant human intelligence, and human intelligence meant finding the people around bin Laden. The lead came from prisoner interrogations, including enhanced interrogation techniques at CII black sites. Several detainees mentioned a courier who served as the link between bin Laden and the outside world. Not a phone, not a computer. A man who physically carried messages. The name that kept appearing was Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. Hassan Gul, a senior al-Qaeda operator captured in 2004, confirmed that al-Kuwaiti was close to bin Laden and still active. Separately, the fact that other high-value prisoners, including Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and Abu Faraj al-Libi, actively denied knowing al-Kuwaiti or downplayed his importance told the CII something relevant. If he were insignificant, there would be no reason to lie about him. Finding al-Kuwaiti's real name took years. The CII Counterterrorism Center worked with contact networks in Pakistan and the region, cross-referencing families, tribal affiliations, phone records, and travel patterns. In 2007, they arrived at the identity: Ibrahim Saeed Ahmed, a Pakistani of Pashtun origin born in Kuwait. His brother Abrar was also involved. In 2010, the NSI intercepted a call from al-Kuwaiti to someone already being monitored in a separate investigation. The call was traced. The phone was tracked. Al-Kuwaiti was located in Peshawar, and CII surveillance teams followed him from there. He drove straight to a compound in Abbottabad. The unit that executed the operation is officially called the United States Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DEVGRU. Everyone knows it as SEAL Team 6. SEAL Team 6 was created in 1980 by Richard Marcinko following the failure of Operation Eagle Claw, the attempted rescue of American hostages in Iran that killed 8 servicemen in the desert and accomplished nothing. The failure showed that the United States had no dedicated maritime counterterrorism unit. Marcinko built one. He named it Team 6 despite there being only 2 SEAL teams at the time. The idea was to make Soviet intelligence think there were more. In 2011, DEVGRU had been at continuous war for nearly 10 years. Its operators had conducted thousands of missions in Iraq and Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda safe houses, Taliban compounds, high-value targets in both theaters. The unit is organized into squadrons: red, blue, gold, and silver. Red Squadron was assigned to Neptune's Spear. The men selected for Abbottabad had experience that is difficult to overstate. Many had been deployed for a decade. Breaching doors, clearing rooms, close-quarters combat in the dark were not skills they were practicing. They were skills they used every 2 or 3 nights in the field. Vice Admiral William McRaven, commander of the Joint Special Operations Command, was placed in charge of planning. McRaven is a career special operator who wrote his master's thesis on the theory of special operations, specifically on what makes raids succeed or fail. He identified 6 principles: simplicity, security, repetition, surprise, speed, and purpose. Neptune's Spear was built around all 6. McRaven had 3 options for killing bin Laden: a drone strike, a bombing run with a B-2, or a helicopter raid. The drone was safest for American personnel, but it would leave no proof of death. The debris from a house hit by a Hellfire missile does not produce DNI. It also risked significant civilian casualties: Al-Kuwaiti's family, the women and children on the upper floors. And if the pacer turned out not to be bin Laden, the United States would have destroyed a residential compound on the territory of an allied nation with nothing to show for it. The B-2 would be conclusive. 2 900-kilo JDAMs would erase the compound from the map. But the same problems applied, multiplied. The crater would extend into neighboring properties. More civilians dead. And again, no body, no proof. McRaven recommended the raid. Dangerous for the team, but it would produce positive identification, minimize civilian casualties compared to an airstrike, and allow intelligence collection from the compound. Obama authorized the raid. A full-scale replica of the Abbottabad compound was built at military facilities in the United States, at locations in North Carolina and Nevada, used by DevGru for training. The replica used CIA measurements from satellite imagery and surveillance. Wall dimensions, room layouts, gate heights, distances between structures, all reproduced. The teams rehearsed the assault on the replica repeatedly, night after night, with night vision goggles, with the dog, with simulated targets. They varied the scenarios. Bin Laden surrenders, bin Laden fights, bin Laden wears a suicide vest, the compound is booby-trapped, a helicopter goes down. They ran every permutation they could think of. The helicopter crews practiced the approach route, flying terrain following to avoid radar detection. McRaven needed to know exactly how long the ground operation would take, because time on Pakistani soil was the variable that could turn a successful raid into a geopolitical catastrophe. Abbottabad is a garrison city. The Pakistani army had units stationed nearby. If the Pakistanis scrambled helicopters or F-16s before extraction, the situation would move from a special operation to an act of war. The target time was 30 minutes on the ground, enough to clear the compound, confirm identity, collect intelligence, and extract. The 2 lead Blackhawks were stealth aircraft that had never been publicly acknowledged. Conventional Blackhawks appear clearly on military radar. These had been rebuilt with angled panels on the fuselage, radar-absorbent materials, a modified tail rotor inside a disc-shaped housing, and redesigned blades to reduce noise. The exact designation remains classified. The pilots informally called them Stealth Hawks. The pilots were from the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers, based at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The 160th flies exclusively for special operations. The pilots who flew into Abbottabad had thousands of hours of nighttime flight in hostile airspace. 2 Chinooks stood by as reserve at a forward base inside Afghanistan, near the border. They carried a quick reaction force, additional SEALs in case the main team ran into serious trouble, and extra fuel for the Blackhawks' return. DevGru had adopted the HK-416 instead of the standard M4 carbine. The HK-416 uses a short-stroke piston system instead of the M4's direct impingement. The gas from firing does not cycle back into the receiver, which means the weapon runs cleaner, cooler, and with fewer malfunctions. The probable configuration for Neptune's Spear: a 10.4-inch barrel in the compact close-quarters variant, a suppressor, an AYPEQ 15 infrared laser visible through night vision but invisible to the naked eye, an EOTech holographic sight, and a Surefire tactical light. The suppressor reduces muzzle flash and noise. In a dark room under night vision, the flash from an unsuppressed rifle temporarily blinds the shooter. The standard DevGru sidearm was the SIG Sauer P226 in 9mm. Thigh holster. Backup for primary weapon failure. The night vision optics were the panoramic 4-tube GP NVG-18. Conventional military night vision has 2 tubes and gives roughly 40 degrees of field of view. The 4-tube model offers 97 panoramic degrees. In a dark building where threats can appear from any angle, that difference in field of view changes the outcome of close-quarters combat. Each unit costs approximately $65,000. Body armor was likely a plate carrier with SAPI ceramic plates, rated to stop 7.62mm rifle rounds. Light and compact for mobility in tight spaces. Breaching explosives were used to open doors and gates. The compound had 2 security gates and several doors locked from the inside. Explosive breaching is faster and more reliable than mechanical methods, and creates disorientation on the other side of the door. Cairo was a military Belgian Malinois assigned to the assault team. His primary role was detection, explosives, hidden rooms, and people concealed in spaces too small or too dangerous for a human to check first. The dog wore a ballistic vest and a mounted camera. There were also MP7s in the operation, but so little has been confirmed about their configuration that it is left open for anyone with more information to add in the comments. On April 28, 2011, Obama gathered the National Security Team in the Situation Room. Present were Vice President Biden, Secretary of State Clinton, Secretary of Defense Gates, CII Director Panetta, National Security Advisor Donnellan, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Admiral Mullen, and McRaven on secure video. The intelligence was not conclusive. No one in that room could say with absolute certainty that the pacer was bin Laden. The compound fit the profile. The connection to the courier was strong. The behavior was consistent. But there was no photograph, no voice intercept, no DNA. Robert Gates, who had been the CII's deputy director during the Desert One failure in 1980, argued for caution. Biden was skeptical of the raid. Others were in favor. McRaven told the president he trusted the plan and his team, but that the decision to go was above his pay grade. Obama said he was going to sleep on it. On the morning of April 29th, he informed Tom Donnellan, "We go." The raid was scheduled for the night of May 1st, chosen because there would be no moon. Moonless nights are ideal for night vision operations because even minimal ambient light improves the contrast of the intensified image. The 2 stealth Blackhawks took off from Jalalabad, Afghanistan, carrying 23 SEALs, a translator, in Cairo. Flight time to Abbottabad, approximately 90 minutes, flying at low altitude through Pakistani airspace without authorization. The Chinooks with the Quick Reaction Force followed behind, holding position inside Afghanistan near the border. Pakistani radar did not detect them. Whether that was because of the stealth modifications, the terrain following flight profile, or both, remains debated. Pakistan later claimed its radar was not oriented toward internal threats. The 2 Blackhawks reached the compound around midnight. The plan was straightforward. The first helicopter, Chalk 1, would hover over the roof of the main building while SEALs fast roped down, clearing from top to bottom. The second, Chalk 2, would drop its team in the courtyard to breach the ground floor, clear the guest house, and hold the perimeter. Chalk 1 ran into a problem McRaven had simulated but hoped would not occur. The compound's walls created a thermal vortex. They had retained the day's heat, and when the helicopter hovered above them, the warm air degraded rotor lift. The aircraft began to descend without control. The pilot could not hold altitude. What followed was a controlled crash. The pilot angled the aircraft and set it down inside the animal pen against the western wall. The tail rotor struck the wall and broke off. The fuselage hit the ground hard and rolled onto its side. 23 men inside. No one was seriously hurt. The SEALs climbed out of the wreckage and adjusted the plan on the spot. Instead of clearing top to bottom, the Chalk 1 team would breach from the ground floor and work up. The Chalk 2 pilot, watching the crash, abandoned his own rooftop approach and landed his aircraft outside the southern wall. His team scaled the wall and entered on foot. The compound had 3 structures: the main 3-story building, a smaller guest house, and an outbuilding. Al-Kuwaiti's brother, Abrar, lived in the guest house with his wife. Al-Kuwaiti lived on the ground floor of the main building with his family. Bin Laden occupied the 2nd and 3rd floors with his youngest wife, Amal, and several children. The guest house was cleared first. Abrar was inside, armed. He was shot and killed. His wife Bushra was also struck and killed. She was close to him in a dark room, and the distinction between a threat and a civilian in the green image of night vision at close range is measured in fractions of a second. That was the most contested death of the operation. In the main building, Al-Kuwaiti came to the door armed. He was shot and killed on the ground floor. The team moved to the staircase. It was narrow, 1 person wide, with a metal gate locked at the landing. Breaching charges opened the gate. On the 2nd floor, Bin Laden's adult son Khalid was on the stairs. A SEAL called his name in Arabic. Khalid turned toward the voice. He was shot and killed. The team climbed to the 3rd floor. 2 SEALs reached the top. The point man saw a tall, thin man wearing a white shalwar kameez at the end of a short hallway near a door. The man stepped back into the room. The operator followed. Inside, Amal Ahmed al-Saddah, Bin Laden's youngest wife, lunged toward the operator. He pushed her aside. She was grazed in the calf by a round, but survived. The point man saw Bin Laden standing near the bed and fired. 2 or 3 rounds struck Bin Laden in the chest and above the left eye. Bin Laden fell. He was dead. A second operator entered and confirmed. Photographs of the face were taken. The SEALs measured the body. Bin Laden was known to be approximately 1.93 meters tall. Unusually tall. The body matched. A SEAL lay down next to the corpse to compare heights because no one had brought a tape measure. McRaven, watching through the helmet camera feed in Jalalabad, would later say that was the moment he believed it was Bin Laden. A DNA sample was collected. The result, compared against DNA from Bin Laden's sister, who had died in a Boston hospital, came back with a 99.9% match. The team gathered hard drives, thumb drives, computers, documents, and other intelligence material from the compound, a vast collection that would later be called the Abbottabad Archive, and would yield years of intelligence about Al-Qaeda's organization, finances, and planning. The destroyed Black Hawk was a problem. The stealth technology could not be left for Pakistan, China, or Russia to examine. The team placed thermite grenades inside the wreckage and destroyed as much of the fuselage as possible. The tail section, which had fallen outside the wall, remained largely intact. Pakistan recovered it. In the weeks that followed, there were reports that Pakistani officials allowed Chinese engineers to examine the tail section before returning it to the United States. The American government never publicly confirmed this. The team, with Bin Laden's body, boarded the remaining Black Hawk and the Chinook that had come from the border as reserve. They flew back to Jalalabad, then transferred to a V-22 Osprey bound for the aircraft carrier Carl Vinson in the Arabian Sea. Bin Laden's body was washed according to Islamic rite, wrapped in white cloth, placed in a weighted bag, and buried at sea from the flight deck of the Carl Vinson. The decision to bury at sea was made to prevent any burial site from becoming a shrine or a pilgrimage point. The United States did not inform Pakistan about the operation. The decision was deliberate and based on a decade of experience. Every time the United States shared intelligence with Pakistan's inter-services intelligence about planned operations against Al-Qaeda or Taliban targets, the targets disappeared before the raid. The American intelligence community believed, and multiple officials stated publicly, that elements within inter-services intelligence were actively protecting Bin Laden, or at minimum, aware of his presence. Bin Laden had lived in Abbottabad for 5 to 6 years. The compound was purpose-built. It was 1.3 kilometers from the military academy. The notion that Pakistani military and intelligence services were unaware of a walled compound of 3,500 square meters, with no phone lines or internet, in a garrison city full of military personnel, is considered implausible by most Western intelligence analysts. Pakistan officially denied any knowledge. The head of Inter-Services Intelligence, Ahmed Shuja Pasha, was reported to be furious, not about bin Laden's death, but about the violation of Pakistani sovereignty. Pakistan's public position was that the raid constituted an unauthorized incursion into sovereign territory. The relationship between the CII and Inter-Services Intelligence, already strained, deteriorated seriously. The broader question, whether Pakistan knew bin Laden was there, was never definitively answered. The Abbottabad Commission, Pakistan's own internal inquiry, criticized the collective failure of the Pakistani military and intelligence apparatus, but did not accuse anyone of actively sheltering bin Laden. Seymour Hersh published a controversial account in 2015 claiming that Pakistani military leadership knew about the raid in advance and cooperated, an allegation the American government, the CII, and most of those involved rejected. What is not disputed? The world's most wanted man lived in a Pakistani military city for half a decade. Pakistani intelligence either knew or failed to notice. Neither explanation is good. The helicopter crash was the most dangerous moment. If both Black Hawks had gone down, the team would have been stranded in a Pakistani garrison city with no extraction. The quick reaction force in the Chinooks would have taken 30 to 60 minutes to arrive. The Pakistani military response from a base less than 2 kilometers away could have come in 10 to 15 minutes. McRaven had a contingency. If the team was stranded and Pakistan sent forces, Obama would have had to call the Pakistani president directly and explain that American soldiers were on the ground and needed to leave. That call would have been the most uncomfortable phone conversation in recent diplomatic history. The thermal vortex that caused the crash had been identified as a risk during planning. The high walls, the warm night, the loaded helicopter, all contributed. McRaven's team had tested the approach on the replica, but the replica was in a different climate and at a different elevation. Abbottabad sits at approximately 1,200 meters above sea level, which reduces rotor efficiency. The combination of altitude, temperature, and the wall effect pushed the helicopter beyond the limit of its performance envelope. If the Chalk 2 pilot had also attempted the original plan and lost his aircraft, the operation would have failed catastrophically. His decision to change the landing point in real time, setting down outside the wall instead of over the roof, was the adaptation that saved the mission timeline. The possibility that bin Laden was wearing a suicide vest was taken seriously. If he had detonated one in the confined space of the 3rd floor, the blast would have killed everyone on that level. The speed of the engagement, seconds between entry and the fatal shot, was designed to prevent exactly that scenario. The destruction of the stealth helicopter was incomplete. The thermite charges destroyed the cockpit and much of the fuselage, but the tail section with its radar-evading design remained largely intact outside the wall. That piece of technology is today, presumably, in the hands of several intelligence services. Bin Laden's death did not end al-Qaeda. Ayman al-Zawahiri succeeded him and led the organization until he was killed by a CII drone in Kabul in July 2022 in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. The Abbottabad archive, the intelligence material captured during the raid, proved strategically more valuable than the killing itself. Hundreds of thousands of documents, videos, and digital files revealed al-Qaeda's organizational structure, its communication networks, its relationships with regional affiliates, and its financing channels. The intelligence community mined the material for years. For DevGru, Neptune's Spear was the culmination of a decade of capability building. The same institutional framework that failed at Desert One in 1980 had become, by 2011, the most capable direct-action force in military history, trained by 10 continuous years of war, equipped with technology that had not existed a decade earlier, and supported by an intelligence apparatus capable of tracking a single courier across a continent over years. The operation also settled a doctrinal argument. Drone strikes had become the default tool for high-value targets, cheaper, no personnel risk, politically easier. Neptune's Spear demonstrated that there are operations a drone cannot resolve. You cannot confirm identity from a crater. You cannot collect intelligence from rubble. You cannot bring a body back from a missile strike. When certainty matters, men on the ground are irreplaceable. For the relationship between the United States and Pakistan, the raid was a rupture that never truly healed. American trust in Pakistani intelligence had been low. After Abbottabad, It was gone. The following decade saw a slow, painful unwinding of the counterterrorism partnership that had defined the post-September 11th era, and the 23 men who climbed out of a downed helicopter in a Pakistani courtyard went up 3 flights of stairs and ended a 10-year hunt in 38 minutes. Most of their names remain classified.